Ethan Cole had learned early in life that the galaxy was rarely kind to humans. Born on a small mining colony on the outskirts of known space, he had grown up surrounded by machines, dust, and the kind of tough people who would smile at your misfortune before helping you. It was not the life he had chosen, but it was the life he had. He had always relied on his wits, his agility, and his ability to read people, skills that had kept him alive more times than he could count. On Virlia Station, where species from hundreds of worlds mingled, these skills were his lifeline. The station was a sprawling metropolis of metal and light, a place where gravity shifted slightly from one corridor to another, and where air currents were carefully regulated to accommodate 100 different species. It was crowded, noisy, and chaotic, a true melting pot of cultures. Merchants shouted across the corridors, selling everything from exotic fruits to starship components. Hover carts zipped past with little regard for pedestrians, and everywhere Ethan looked, he saw something strange, fascinating, or dangerous. Ethan was making his way through the central marketplace when he saw it. A flash of movement caught his eye, something small and fast, darting between the legs of aliens of all shapes and sizes. His attention sharpened. A crowd had begun to gather near a row of holographic display stalls, and he could hear the rising tone of panic in the voices around him. He pushed forward and saw the cause. A group of 3 rough-looking figures, humanoids with augmented limbs and sharp, angular armor, had grabbed a woman's bag. It glowed faintly, a soft, golden light emanating from the clasp. She was trying to hold on, but her strength was no match for the thieves. "Hey!" Ethan shouted instinctively, stepping forward. "Let her go." He had spent years navigating the narrow alleys of the station, jumping over air ducts, sliding along railings, and moving through places that others thought inaccessible. Without thinking twice, he sprinted after them. The crowd parted for him as if by instinct. He dove over a low railing, spun around a sharp corner, and followed the thieves into a section of the station that was less crowded but far more dangerous. The corridors here were narrow and filled with sudden drops, maintenance shafts, and exposed wiring. One wrong step could mean a broken limb, or worse. Ethan's lungs burned and his legs ached, but he did not stop. He had caught thieves before, and he had learned that hesitation was often worse than recklessness. The glow of the bag was still visible, bobbing in the hands of the lead thief. Ethan noticed the subtle differences in their movements. The lead thief was quick and decisive, the second was clumsy but strong, and the third seemed nervous, always looking over its shoulder. He took a risk. He jumped onto a low catwalk and used it to leap down directly in front of the thieves. They were startled, and in the confusion, the bag slipped from the lead thief's grip. Ethan caught it in one hand, landing lightly on the ground as the thieves skidded past him, cursing and shouting in their alien language. "Looking for this?" Ethan said, holding the bag out. The woman ran up to him. She was taller than he had expected, with smooth, silver-toned skin and eyes that shimmered like polished crystals. She moved with grace, but there was a tension in her posture, as if she was constantly aware of everyone around her. She took the bag carefully, as though it were a fragile artifact rather than a simple container. "Thank you," she said, her voice calm but firm. Most would not risk themselves for a stranger. "I guess I'm not like most here." He didn't know it yet, but the woman was Luria, a member of the Scifi Council, one of the most powerful governing bodies in this sector. She was responsible for maintaining law, order, and diplomacy across dozens of systems, a position of immense influence. For Ethan, she was simply a stranger whose bag he had returned. Ethan returned to the marketplace, his heart still racing. Around him, life continued as normal. Merchants shouted their prices, children chased small hovering drones, and the scent of alien spices filled the air. He felt a strange mix of pride and excitement. He had done something good, something courageous, without even thinking about it. As the day went on, Ethan wandered through the corridors, stopping at his favorite vendors and exchanging a few words with acquaintances. Despite the chaos, he felt a sense of satisfaction. In a galaxy where humans were often underestimated, where they were considered weak, reckless, or untrustworthy, he had made a small difference. That evening, Ethan found himself at a small eatery that hovered above the lower levels of the station. From here, he could see ships of all shapes and sizes coming and going, their engines casting brilliant streaks of light across the dark expanse of space beyond the station's dome. He ordered a simple meal and watched quietly as the station continued its endless motion. It was then that he first sensed something strange, a subtle awareness, a feeling of being observed. He glanced around, but no one seemed out of place, yet the sensation persisted. Ethan had learned to trust his instincts. They had saved him more than once. He decided to ignore it, telling himself he was just tired. What he did not know was that Luria had taken note of him. Observing him from a discreet distance, she recognized qualities that were rare not only among humans but across most species: courage without recklessness, intelligence tempered by humility, and a moral clarity that guided his actions. In her position, she saw many individuals claim bravery or skill, but few truly displayed it when faced with danger. The next few days passed uneventfully, but Ethan could not shake a sense of anticipation. He continued his routine, scavenging parts, trading goods, and navigating the crowded streets of Violia Station. He encountered alien species of every shape and size, some curious, some hostile, some indifferent. He dealt with each with patience and tact, relying on the skills that had kept him alive for years. Then, without warning, a message arrived. A formal summons from the Sci-fi Council. Ethan frowned as he read it. He had never been contacted by the Council before. Their involvement in human affairs was usually indirect, often mediated by intermediaries or mercenary groups. A direct summons was unusual. He hesitated. Part of him wanted to ignore it to continue with his simple, predictable life. But curiosity and instinct pushed him forward. He had a sense that this summons was important, though he could not yet understand why. He made his way to the council chambers, a towering structure of polished metal and glowing panels. Inside, the air was cool and sterile, a stark contrast to the bustling chaos outside. The chamber was vast, with seats arranged in a semicircle around a central platform. Council members of various species sat in silent observation, their expressions unreadable. Ethan felt a knot of tension in his stomach. As he stepped onto the platform, he noticed her immediately. Luria, the woman whose bag he had returned, stood at the center, her presence commanding silence. Her eyes met his, and for the first time he understood that this was no ordinary encounter. The calm, unshakable demeanor he had seen before now carried weight, authority, and scrutiny. "Ethan Cole," she said, her voice resonating clearly through the chamber. "You have been brought here to answer questions regarding your activities on Violia Station. You may sit." Luria continued, "You returned a stolen item to me days ago. Many would not have acted as you did. Yet your presence here indicates suspicion of other activities. You will have the opportunity to speak and to explain your actions." The stakes were higher than he imagined, though he could not yet see their full scope. He met Luria's gaze and replied with careful honesty. "I didn't do it for recognition. I didn't expect anything. I just saw someone in danger and acted. That's all." Luria's expression softened slightly, a hint of approval flickering across her alien features. Yet the hearing had only begun. Ethan did not know it, but this was the first step in a series of events that would test every skill he had, challenge his courage, and ultimately reveal the true value of humanity in a galaxy that often underestimated it. And so, with no way of knowing what lay ahead, Ethan Cole faced the council, unaware that the small act of returning a bag had placed him at the center of forces far beyond his imagining. Ethan sat in the council chamber, his heart still pounding from the summons. The room was quiet, but it was a tense silence, the kind that weighed heavily on anyone unprepared. The alien council members observed him like predators watching prey, their expressions unreadable, their bodies alien in every possible way. Some had 4 arms, others had scales that shimmered with different colors, and a few seemed to float slightly above the floor, held aloft by forces Ethan could not understand. He felt small, human in a room filled with beings who had lived centuries and had seen countless wonders and horrors. Luria stood at the center, her posture straight and commanding. Her eyes, the same crystalline silver that had fascinated him in the marketplace, were fixed on him. Ethan had no idea what to expect, but instinct told him that honesty and careful observation would be his greatest allies. "You are aware of why you are here," Luria said, her voice calm but powerful, echoing in the chamber. "Humans have recently been involved in a series of incidents on this station and others: theft, sabotage, and interference in sensitive affairs. While you may not be directly responsible, the Council must understand your actions." He realized that each murmur was filled with judgment, curiosity, suspicion, and perhaps even amusement. He took a deep breath. "Tell us about the incident in the marketplace," Luria said. "The one where you returned a stolen item to me. Your actions were unusual for a human. Most would have ignored the theft or allowed it to continue. Why did you act?" "I saw someone in trouble. I could stop it, so I did. I didn't think about it much. I didn't expect anything in return. I guess I do feel good about it afterward, he admitted. But it wasn't about recognition, it was about doing the right thing. If interference had caused harm elsewhere. But courage alone does not absolve recklessness. Humans are impulsive. How do we know you are not a risk? Luria's gaze did not waver. Your words carry weight, but the council must see evidence of this behavior over time. Humans are unpredictable. Your action in the marketplace is commendable but isolated. Then, without warning, a loud alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed, and a deep, resonant voice announced, "Security breach in Sector 7. All personnel prepare for emergency protocols." He had faced dangerous situations before, but nothing like this. The council chambers, usually a place of calm authority, were now a hive of controlled chaos. Luria moved swiftly to a central console, her hands flying over controls with precision and authority. "This is not a minor disturbance," she said. "It is a coordinated attack. We must protect the council and civilians immediately. I can navigate the corridors, reach hostages, and help secure the council." Ethan moved through the station with purpose, avoiding traps, disarming devices, and guiding council members to safe areas. The attackers were highly trained, equipped with advanced weapons, and intent on causing maximum disruption. Ethan relied on his instincts, his speed, and his knowledge of human improvisation to outmaneuver them. At one point, he encountered a hallway rigged with a gravity trap, designed to crush or suspend intruders. Thinking quickly, he activated an emergency override on a nearby maintenance panel, diverting the energy flow just enough to allow himself and a group of civilians to pass safely. The attackers, unaware of the change, were forced to retreat temporarily. Luria watched from a security station, her expression unreadable but her mind calculating. Every decision Ethan made, every risk he took, revealed more about his character. He was brave but not reckless, decisive but not arrogant, selfless yet capable of thinking strategically. It was rare to see such qualities combined, especially in a human. By the time the breach was contained, several hostages had been rescued, the attackers subdued, and the station's systems restored. Ethan was exhausted, his clothes torn and his body bruised, but he felt a sense of satisfaction. He had acted not for recognition or reward, but because it was the right thing to do. When he returned to the council chamber, Luria met him at the entrance. "You have exceeded expectations," she said simply. "Your actions today have demonstrated qualities that few species, including humans, possess. You acted with courage, intelligence, and integrity. That is why you are here, why the council watches you, and why your fate is important." She outlined the council's concerns about human behavior, the recent incidents on the station, and the need to ensure that humans could be trusted as allies rather than threats. Then she spoke directly to Ethan. "You have shown today that humans, when guided by principles, can act with extraordinary effectiveness. Your actions have prevented harm, saved lives, and preserved order. Yet the council must consider whether such behavior is typical or exceptional. Your courage and judgment will be considered as part of the council's assessment. But understand this. Your actions have not only saved lives, they have created an example. Humans may be underestimated, but your behavior challenges that perception." He had survived the immediate danger, proven his courage, and impressed some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Yet he knew that this was only the beginning. The council's judgment would not be simple, and the path ahead was uncertain. Later, as he walked through the quieter corridors of the station, Ethan reflected on what had happened. He thought about the small acts that led to greater consequences, returning a bag, taking a risk, acting with integrity. Each choice had built upon the last, leading him to this moment of recognition and scrutiny. Unbeknownst to him, Luria continued to observe from a distance. She saw potential in him, not just as an individual, but as a symbol of what humans could be when guided by intelligence, courage, and morality. The events of the day had not only tested Ethan, they had also challenged her assumptions about an entire species. Ethan's life had changed, though he did not yet fully understand how. He had survived a test of skill and morality, faced danger with clarity, and earned the attention of the highest authority on the station. The path ahead would demand even more, and the choices he made next could determine not only his fate, but the perception of humanity across the galaxy. And so, standing amid the quiet hum of the station, Ethan Cole realized that his actions, small and simple though they seemed, had begun a chain of events that would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. For now, all he could do was prepare, stay true to his instincts, and face the challenges ahead with courage and honesty, the qualities that had brought him this far. The morning after the station attack, Violia Station was buzzing with tension. Even though the immediate danger had passed, the sense of unease lingered like a shadow over every corridor and docking bay. Merchants hurried to resume their trade, but whispers of the breach spread quickly, reminding everyone that even the most secure places could fall victim to chaos. Humans, already a minority here, were watched more closely than ever. Ethan Cole moved through the corridors, carrying a small pack of supplies he had gathered the previous day. He tried to act normal to blend in, but it was impossible to ignore the way alien eyes followed him. Some were curious, others suspicious, and a few seemed almost wary, as if expecting him to fail. Ethan had grown used to such scrutiny over the years, but now it carried a new weight. His actions during the breach had not gone unnoticed, and he could feel the eyes of authority tracking him like a shadow he could not escape. He had just passed a narrow hallway when a sudden alarm rang out, louder and more urgent than the previous day's alert. Red lights flashed throughout the station, accompanied by a deep, resonant voice that echoed through every chamber. Emergency breach in sectors 12 through 16. All personnel engage emergency protocols immediately. He didn't have time to think, he just reacted. He sprinted toward the command hub, following the path he had memorized during the last breach. The corridors were crowded with panicked civilians and security personnel rushing to contain the threat. Ethan navigated through them, ducking under obstacles and leaping over maintenance ducts, his agility allowing him to move faster than most. At the command hub, Luria was already coordinating a response. Her calm, commanding presence contrasted sharply with the chaos around her. She gave orders with precision, her hands moving over holographic controls, redirecting power, sealing certain sectors, and opening emergency escape routes. Ethan approached, breathless but ready. "I can help," he said. "I know the station's layout. I can reach sectors the attackers might not expect and protect civilians." His first stop was Sector 12, a residential area where several humans and aliens were trapped. The attackers had blocked exits and set up automated security traps. Using his knowledge of maintenance passages, Ethan navigated through hidden vents and emergency tunnels, avoiding detection. When he reached the trapped civilians, he found a group of young aliens, frightened and huddled together. Their eyes widened at the sight of him. Ethan knelt and spoke calmly. "I'm here to get you out. Stay close and follow my lead. Trust me, okay?" His small size and human agility allowed him to squeeze through spaces that larger beings could not, turning what seemed like impossible escapes into achievable paths. Meanwhile, in Sector 13, the attackers were advancing toward a storage area containing critical supplies. Ethan anticipated their moves, using his knowledge of shortcuts and weak points to set up simple obstacles that slowed the intruders. He used crates and cables to create barriers and forced them into predictable paths, buying time for security teams to respond. During one encounter, he faced a heavily armored attacker. The being's movements were powerful and precise, its weapon crackling with lethal energy. Ethan knew a direct confrontation would be suicide. Instead, he relied on misdirection, ducking behind a corner, using a low-hanging pipe to trip the attacker, and then sliding past while the alien struggled to regain balance. Every movement was calculated, a mixture of instinct and strategy honed through years of survival in unpredictable environments. By the time he reached Sector 14, the situation had escalated further. The attackers were coordinated, demonstrating tactics that suggested military training. Ethan realized that brute force alone would not win this fight. He needed to think creatively, anticipate their strategies, and exploit weaknesses. His human intuition, often dismissed as inferior by other species, became his greatest weapon. He discovered that the attackers had overlooked a maintenance lift that could bypass their main blockade. He guided a small group of trapped civilians through the lift, signaling them to stay quiet as the attackers passed nearby. The lift opened into an abandoned sector, where he could safely lead them to an emergency exit. Each successful rescue reinforced his confidence, though exhaustion weighed heavily on him. Back at the command hub, Luria monitored Ethan's progress. She was impressed, though she maintained her composed demeanor. Every decision he made revealed something about human ingenuity, an ability to adapt, improvise, and act decisively under pressure. Other council members, initially skeptical of his value, began to take note. A few whispered among themselves, acknowledging that humans might possess qualities they had underestimated for centuries. As Ethan moved toward Sector 15, he encountered a situation that tested not only his physical skills but his moral judgment. A group of attackers had cornered a squad of alien guards. The attackers had superior numbers and firepower, and the guards were on the verge of defeat. Ethan could have bypassed the area, focusing on rescuing civilians elsewhere, but he knew that leaving the guards to die would compromise the station's security and endanger countless lives. He devised a plan. Using debris and loose panels, he created a temporary barrier that provided cover. He then used a combination of small, improvised devices, alarms, light diversions, and controlled energy discharges, to confuse the attackers. The guards, encouraged by his intervention, rallied and pushed back, gaining control of the area. Ethan's ability to act decisively while maintaining the safety of others demonstrated his unique combination of courage and intelligence. By the time he reached Sector 16, the final stage of the breach was underway. The attackers had retreated to a central hub, attempting to access the station's main systems. Ethan realized that if they succeeded, the entire station could be compromised. He knew he could not take them on directly. Instead, he used the environment to his advantage. He activated a series of emergency doors and rerouted energy flows, creating a maze of obstacles that slowed the attackers. The security teams, guided by his previous interventions, closed in on the intruders from multiple directions. The attackers were forced into a confined area, where they were quickly subdued without further civilian casualties. When the final confrontation ended, Ethan stood amid the chaos, breathing heavily, his body bruised and exhausted. The station's systems were stabilizing, and the immediate threat had been neutralized. Civilians and council members alike emerged from hiding, expressions of relief and gratitude on their faces. Luria approached him, her eyes reflecting a rare warmth. "You have done more than expected," she said. "Your actions today have saved lives, preserved order, and demonstrated qualities that few beings, human or otherwise, possess. Courage, intelligence, and morality, qualities that are often undervalued in your species. Anyone in my place would have done the same." Luria spoke on his behalf, explaining how his interventions had prevented catastrophe and how his decision-making and moral clarity had been exceptional. The council members, once skeptical of humans, began to reconsider their assumptions. Some murmured approval, others nodded thoughtfully. Ethan's presence had shifted perceptions. As he walked through the quieter corridors of the station, Ethan reflected on the events. He realized that being human in a galaxy that often underestimated his kind was both a challenge and an opportunity. His intelligence, courage, and moral judgment were not just personal traits, they were examples of what humanity could achieve when tested. He paused at a viewing platform overlooking the docking bays. Ships of countless designs and sizes moved in and out, their lights reflecting on the polished surfaces of the station. Ethan thought about the small choices that had led to this moment: returning a bag, taking risks, acting with integrity. Each decision had created ripples, shaping not only his fate but the way others saw humanity. Luria joined him, her expression thoughtful. "You have shown that humans can rise to challenges that many would avoid. Your actions challenge assumptions about your species, and perhaps, if others observe and learn, humanity can gain the respect it deserves. I just know that doing the right thing matters, even if no one notices. Today, I guess people noticed." The station was safe, for now, but he understood that danger could return at any moment. What mattered was how he acted, how he responded, and how he remained true to the principles that had guided him so far. In a galaxy filled with uncertainty, prejudice, and hidden dangers, humanity had shown a spark of brilliance. And Ethan Cole, a simple human from a small colony, had become the living example of what courage, intelligence, and morality could achieve, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The events of the past few days had left Virelia Station tense but operational. The attacks had been repelled, civilians had been rescued, and the station's security teams had regained control. Yet despite the calm that returned, Ethan Cole could feel the weight of expectation pressing on him. The council's observation was far from over. Every step he took, every decision he made would be scrutinized. What he had done so far had impressed some, but it was clear that his true test had yet to come. Ethan woke early, the soft hum of the station's energy systems filling the small apartment he had rented in the residential sector. He went through his morning routine mechanically, brushing off fatigue, stretching his muscles, and checking the tools he kept with him at all times. Today, he knew, would demand more than agility and quick thinking. It would demand judgment, strategy, and the kind of moral clarity that could influence the perception of all humans in the eyes of the Sci-fi Council. He arrived at the council chambers as the station's lights shifted to the formal illumination used for official proceedings. Luria awaited him, her presence as commanding as ever. She gestured for him to follow her, leading him into a side corridor that bypassed the main entrance. Ethan noticed the subtle security protocols in place: airlocks, energy barriers, and surveillance arrays. This was no ordinary chamber. It was designed to withstand threats from the galaxy's most dangerous factions. Inside the chamber, the council members were already assembled. Some of the seats were occupied by beings he recognized from the previous days, while others were new, their forms exotic and unfamiliar. All eyes were on him, but it was Luria who held his attention. She moved to the central podium, her posture elegant and deliberate, and spoke in a voice that resonated throughout the room. "Ethan Cole," she said, "your actions during the recent breaches have demonstrated courage and intelligence. However, the Council must understand not only what you did, but why. Humanity is often underestimated, and we must determine whether these qualities are common or exceptional among your kind." He had come to realize that this council was not merely judging him as an individual. They were using his actions as a measure of humanity's potential. Every word he spoke, every choice he made, could influence the station's perception of his species. The first scenario presented to him was not a hypothetical. It was real. A new threat had emerged in the outer docking rings. A rogue freighter had been spotted attempting to dock illegally, carrying unknown cargo. Security teams had been dispatched, but the freighter's crew was highly skilled, and the potential for conflict was high. Ethan was given command of a small tactical team, a mix of human and alien personnel, to intercept the freighter and prevent any escalation. As he prepared, Ethan reviewed the limited information available. The freighter's trajectory suggested it could bypass primary sensors, and the crew appeared capable of advanced evasive maneuvers. He needed a strategy that minimized risk while maximizing effectiveness. Humans often relied on improvisation, and this would be his greatest asset. The team followed him to the docking rings. Ethan moved with quiet confidence, assessing the environment with careful observation. He noted maintenance tunnels, energy conduits, and structural weaknesses in the docking bay that could be leveraged if needed. His human intuition told him where to position his team, when to act, and how to anticipate the freighter's movements. The freighter approached, its engines glowing with a soft, menacing light. Ethan signaled his team to spread out, taking positions that allowed coverage without alerting the intruders to their presence. The tension was palpable. Any wrong move could result in catastrophic damage or loss of life. When the freighter attempted its first evasive maneuver, Ethan predicted the course correctly. Using the maintenance shafts he had identified earlier, he positioned his team to cut off escape routes. At the same time, he deployed energy nets and temporary barriers to slow the freighter's movement. The crew, expecting a straightforward interception, found themselves navigating a complex obstacle course orchestrated by a human strategist they had underestimated. During the operation, Ethan made a critical decision. One of the intruders attempted to escape toward an area where civilians were present. He could have focused on capturing the freighter, but that would have risked innocent lives. Without hesitation, he redirected part of his team to intercept the intruder, guiding civilians to safety while maintaining pressure on the freighter. The plan worked. The freighter was contained, the intruder apprehended, and no civilians were harmed. Luria monitored the operation from the council chambers, her eyes reflecting a mixture of admiration and calculation. She noted how Ethan balanced risk, strategy, and morality, qualities that distinguished him not just as a capable human, but as a model representative of his species. After the operation, Ethan returned to the council chamber, his body tired but his mind alert. He reported the outcome clearly and concisely, emphasizing the importance of civilian safety and strategic positioning. The council members listened intently, some exchanging nods of approval. Luria spoke next, her words measured and deliberate. "Ethan Cole, your actions today demonstrate that humans are capable of extraordinary judgment under pressure. You acted decisively, protected the vulnerable, and neutralized a threat efficiently. This council recognizes your contributions and your ability to lead with both intelligence and morality. I don't know if I'm extraordinary, I just try to make the right choices. Ethan remained standing, observing quietly. He realized that this process was not only about judging him, but about establishing trust and understanding between species. Humanity had often been underestimated, dismissed as reckless or weak. Today, the Council was reconsidering those assumptions, using his actions as evidence that humans could be valued allies. As the deliberation concluded, Luria addressed the chamber. The Council recognizes that humans, though often underestimated, possess qualities that can contribute significantly to the safety and stability of our sectors. Ethan Cole has exemplified these qualities through his actions, and we shall consider him as an example for future cooperation and trust building. Later, as he walked through the quieter corridors of the station, he reflected on the events that had brought him here. Returning a stolen bag had seemed like a simple act, a moment of instinctual kindness. Yet it had led him to the Council, tested his skills, and ultimately demonstrated the potential of his species. The realization that small actions could ripple outward to create significant impact resonated deeply. Luria joined him again, walking silently beside him. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have shown what humans can achieve when guided by intelligence, courage, and morality. That is a rare combination, not only in your species but across the galaxy. The galaxy has underestimated your species for too long, but today you have begun to change that perception." Yet he knew that the journey was far from complete. Challenges would continue to arise, and the need for courage, intelligence, and moral clarity would persist. Ethan lay on his cot, thinking of the paths that had led him here. Every choice, every risk, and every act of integrity had shaped the outcome. He realized that being human in a galaxy of powerful and advanced species was both a challenge and an opportunity. It required resourcefulness, determination, and the willingness to act with honor even when recognition was not guaranteed. As sleep overtook him, he thought of the civilians he had saved, the council members whose perceptions had shifted, and the countless beings who might one day see humanity in a new light. He understood that today's actions were more than survival. They were proof that courage, intelligence, and morality could create change, even against overwhelming odds. Tomorrow, the station would awaken again to the hum of commerce and travel. Yet Ethan knew that the seeds he had planted through his choices would grow, influencing perceptions, inspiring trust, and demonstrating the true potential of humanity. He had faced danger, uncertainty, and scrutiny, and had emerged not only alive but as a symbol of what humans could achieve. In the quiet of his apartment, with the lights of the station casting soft reflections across the walls, Ethan Cole understood that his journey was far from over. But he also knew that humanity, underestimated and often dismissed, had proven its capacity for greatness. Courage, intelligence, and moral clarity were more than personal traits. They were the foundation upon which respect, trust, and influence could be built across the galaxy. And so, as sleep claimed him, Ethan knew that the next challenge would come. But he also knew that, whatever it was, he would face it with the same courage, ingenuity, and integrity that had carried him through the trials so far, qualities that defined not only him, but the potential of all humanity. The calm after the recent crises on Violia Station was fragile. The station hummed with activity, but the shadows of the previous attacks lingered. Merchants traded warily, security personnel patrolled relentlessly, and whispers of intrigue circulated among the crowd. Ethan Cole moved through the corridors with quiet determination. He had faced danger, earned the council's attention, and proven himself in ways he could not have imagined. Yet he knew that the final test of his character and the recognition of humanity's true potential was still to come. Ethan had been summoned once again to the council chambers. Luria awaited him, as composed and commanding as ever. Her eyes, clear and focused, gave nothing away, but Ethan could sense the weight of her judgment. Today would not be about quick thinking or agility. It would be about wisdom, ethics, and the ability to inspire trust among beings from countless worlds. As he entered the chamber, the council members were already present. Their alien forms filled the room, a tapestry of colors, shapes, and features. Some of them had watched him closely during the previous breaches, noting his courage and ingenuity. Others were new, arriving to witness the culmination of this unusual human's journey. Ethan felt a surge of responsibility. His actions today would resonate far beyond his own fate. They could redefine the station's perception of humans across the galaxy. Luria began, her voice calm but powerful. Ethan Cole, you have demonstrated courage, intelligence, and integrity. You have protected civilians, neutralized threats, and earned the attention of this council. Yet, today we must determine not only your fate, but the potential role of humanity in future cooperative efforts across our sectors. This was no longer about personal survival. It was about demonstrating that humans could be trusted allies, capable of strategic thinking, ethical judgment, and moral leadership. The council presented him with a complex scenario. A neighboring system had reported an escalating conflict between two species over limited resources. The disagreement threatened to escalate into open warfare, and the council sought a neutral mediator to prevent disaster. Ethan was asked to lead a small delegation, composed of representatives from both species, and negotiate a resolution before violence erupted. He studied the data provided: historical conflicts, current grievances, cultural nuances, and potential flashpoints. The task was immense. The council emphasized that any misstep could result in loss of life or permanent diplomatic failure. Ethan knew that brute force would not succeed. He needed strategy, diplomacy, and the kind of insight that had earned him recognition in the past. Ethan prepared carefully. He reviewed cultural protocols, customs, and negotiation strategies. He analyzed the motivations of each party, anticipating possible objections and reactions. Unlike physical challenges, this task required patience, empathy, and the ability to communicate clearly across species barriers. It was the ultimate test of his intellect and moral judgment. When he arrived at the negotiation chamber, the representatives from both species were already present. Their expressions were tense, distrustful, and wary. Ethan could sense the simmering hostility, the suspicion that any misstep could ignite a chain reaction of conflict. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the lessons he had learned on Violia Station: observation, careful planning, and moral clarity. He began by speaking clearly and respectfully. "I understand that both of you have legitimate concerns," he said. "I am here not to favor one side over the other, but to find a solution that protects lives, resources, and the stability of your system. If we work together, we can resolve this without conflict." Ethan listened patiently, allowing each party to express grievances fully. He took notes, asked clarifying questions, and acknowledged the validity of their concerns without taking sides. His approach was calm, deliberate, and respectful, a human approach that contrasted sharply with the aggressive posturing of others. As the negotiation progressed, Ethan identified points of common ground. Both species valued the stability of their system, the safety of their civilians, and the preservation of essential resources. He proposed a plan that balanced the needs of both parties, introducing compromise measures and incentives that addressed immediate concerns while laying the foundation for long-term cooperation. The room was tense, every word scrutinized. Ethan maintained his composure, speaking with clarity and authority. He appealed to logic, empathy, and shared responsibility, emphasizing that collaboration, not conflict, would serve their collective interests. Slowly, the representatives began to respond, their voices softening, their postures relaxing. Trust, fragile at first, began to grow. After hours of careful negotiation, a preliminary agreement was reached. The representatives shook hands, exchanged assurances, and agreed to implement the measures Ethan had proposed. The tension in the room dissipated, replaced by cautious optimism. Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. He had achieved what seemed impossible, not through force or intimidation, but through intelligence, diplomacy, and moral clarity. Back at the council chambers, Ethan reported the outcome. Luria and the other council members listened intently, their expressions reflecting approval and respect. The agreement was a success, a testament to the potential of humans to act as mediators, strategists, and ethical leaders in complex situations. Luria addressed the council formally. "Ethan Cole has demonstrated that humans, when guided by intelligence, courage, and moral clarity, can act decisively to prevent conflict and protect life. His actions exemplify qualities that are not only commendable, but essential for cooperation across species." The decision was unanimous, a clear acknowledgement of his abilities and the potential of humanity as a whole. Ethan accepted the position with humility. He understood the responsibility it carried, and he was determined to honor the trust placed in him. "I will do my best," he said simply. "I will act with integrity, intelligence, and respect for all parties involved." He traveled to different sectors, negotiating disputes, resolving conflicts, and building bridges between species. His human perspective, once underestimated, became a valued asset. Other beings began to recognize that humans, despite their apparent vulnerability, possessed unique qualities: resourcefulness, moral clarity, adaptability, and the ability to inspire trust. Ethan's efforts began to shift perceptions. Humans were no longer seen solely as scavengers or opportunists. Instead, they were recognized as capable allies, capable of contributing meaningfully to interstellar diplomacy, strategy, and security. His actions had created a ripple effect, influencing attitudes across systems and establishing a new level of respect for humanity. One evening, as Ethan stood on a viewing platform overlooking a bustling docking bay, Luria joined him. Ships from countless worlds moved in and out, their lights reflecting on the polished surfaces of the station. Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought him here, returning a stolen bag, facing danger in the marketplace, navigating attacks, and mediating disputes. Each step, each decision had led to this moment of recognition and opportunity. "You have done more than act with courage," Luria said. "You have demonstrated the true potential of humanity. Your actions have reshaped perceptions, built trust, and created opportunities for cooperation that did not exist before." "I never imagined that returning a bag could lead to all this," he said. "I just tried to do what was right. Others will follow your lead, and your species will be judged by the qualities you embody." But he also knew that humans, often underestimated and overlooked, had proven their ability to rise to challenges, to act with integrity, and to shape events through courage, intelligence, and moral clarity. Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that his actions had consequences far beyond his personal fate. They influenced perceptions, inspired others, and laid the groundwork for cooperation and trust across the galaxy. Every choice mattered, every decision had the potential to create change, and every act of courage and integrity could leave a lasting impact. In the quiet of the observation deck, with the hum of the station and the lights of distant stars surrounding him, Ethan Cole understood something profound. Humanity, underestimated and often dismissed, could achieve greatness not through dominance, but through intelligence, morality, courage, and collaboration. He had become a symbol, not by seeking recognition, but by acting according to the principles that defined him. Luria placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "The galaxy has watched your actions. It has seen what humans can accomplish. Your journey demonstrates that even a single individual, guided by principle, can influence events on a grand scale. That is the mark of true leadership, and the reason humanity will be respected in ways it has never known." For the first time, he understood fully that being human in a galaxy of diverse and advanced species was not a limitation. It was an opportunity. An opportunity to act with intelligence, to inspire trust, and to create change where it was most needed. The simple act of doing the right thing in the face of danger and uncertainty had transformed not only his own life, but the perception of an entire species. Ethan Cole, once a solitary scavenger, had become a symbol of humanity's potential. The galaxy had taken notice, and the ripple of his actions would continue to expand, shaping relationships, inspiring trust, and proving that courage, intelligence, and moral clarity could redefine even the most unlikely of heroes. And as the stars shone brightly beyond the station's dome, Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity's story in the galaxy was far from complete, but the foundation had been laid. One choice at a time, one act of integrity at a time, humans could rise to challenges, inspire respect, and leave a lasting mark on the universe.